Fantastic. Hello there, Master Hellish here, and welcome back to CodinGame. Today we are on the next level, temperatures. Now, if you haven't seen the previous episodes in this series, I recommend you go check them out, and the link to them is at the end of this episode in the credits and also in the description of this video on YouTube. Now today, this temperature one, what we got to do, it says in this exercise we have to analyse records of temperatures and find the closest to zero. Okay, interesting. So we've got a little graph here of a number of temperatures, both positive and negative, and here it says the temperatures here, the closest to zero is -1. Now, that appears to be the case. It says write a program that prints the temperature closest to zero amongst the input data. Okay, so if two numbers are equally close to zero, positive integer has to be considered closest to zero. Oh, right, okay, so if there's 5 and -5, then we need to display 5. That's added some extra complexity to it. So we're going to read the standard input and do an output for that. So the input is a number of temperatures to analyze and also a string of the temperatures expressed as integers. So we're not looking at 3.5 or anything like that. They're all whole numbers between -273 and 5,526. And it says output display 0 if no temperatures are provided. Oh, okay, so we might even get none. Right, and the constraints are there, and there's an example. So we get 5 temperatures, 1, -2, 8, 4, 5, and the output is 1 because number 1 is the closest to 0. Right, we can do this. That seems moderately easy, doesn't it? Well, no, there's a number of different things to consider, and also I've added myself some extra complexity because today we're not doing this in VB. I've changed the language. We're going to be looking at PHP. I don't really know PHP that well, but I know programming, so let's see if I can figure it out, just to give myself that extra little bit of complexity. Well, first things first, you can see here that we've got this scanf function here, and what it is, it's pulling in the number of temperatures to analyze. Fair enough. And then after that function, we're making temps equal to system.getLine, which is another function, and it's reading in a string of characters. And that is the integers ranging from -273 to 5526. So what we're going to do, I mean, here is the result that it wants us to echo. I think the first thing to do before we do anything else is test to see if n is 0, because it says display 0 if there is no temperatures provided, otherwise display the temperature closest to 0. So let's deal with that first. So let's say if $n, because in PHP every variable has a dollar in front of it, if $n is equal to 0, and then we want to, I don't know if we put then, let's try then, and we do brackets. There we go. Oh, hang on a minute, no, this is PHP, we don't need a then. There we go. We can then put an else in, and after the else, of course, we need some brackets, and with PHP we don't have an end if. The brackets define the beginning and the end in PHP. With PHP you also need line terminators. This tells the interpreter that you've got to the end of a piece of code and you need to do that thing before moving on to the next line, and for that it's a semicolon. You can see one being used here in this echo result. Just as a point, that echo is what's actually putting our item back into the main onto the it's our output. So we actually want to use this now, so let's steal that and put it in our if statement. So if n is equal to 0, our result wants to be 0. There we go. Else we're going to do something else. We're going to work out what's going on. So if our number of inputs is 0, then we just output 0. Now I've just noticed a possible bug with this. We are reading in this n figure, and it says is a number of temperatures to analyze, but I'm wondering if it's reading it as a string or as a number. I don't know. Really though, we're going to have to guess that it's probably a string. So for a string comparison, we want two equals, and we also want to then probably have this like that. When you're doing a string in PHP, you can use speech marks like that to denote it. And you can see it's actually turned green as well. Our equals is nice and orange because we know it's a comparison there. So I think that might... Oh, hang on, I know we've got an X here. Syntax error. Oh, unexpected T variable. Expecting bracket. Well, that's interesting. Unexpected T variable. I better Google that error message. Right, I've just looked it up, and this bit here, this %d, is defining this input of $n, this variable, as an actual integer, not as a string, which is where we're getting, I think, our error message from. It's trying to do an integer comparison here, and it's I've set it up like a string. So let's go ahead and just remove those marks there, and we'll see if that actually then sorts it out. So we go if $n equals 0, then we echo this. Right. It's still saying a syntax error. Why are we still getting a syntax error? Oh, I forgot my brackets in my if statement. That's what it is. I'm sure that's it. Let's have a look. Put my brackets in. Ah, there we go. Right, so in PHP you have to have brackets around your condition in an if statement. So this bit is our condition. It says n, which is our number of temperatures to analyse, equals 0. So that is our condition. If that is true, then we're going to be echoing our 0. This /n here is to do with like the new line kind of entry sort of thing. So let's get rid of some of this here. We don't need these comments. Let's get rid of the comments so we can have a better look at our code. Let's pull this back up here. There we go. Get rid of our block comment at the beginning. Right, so we've got our inputs, which is now we've got our n and we've got our temps. We've checked to see if n is 0. If n is 0, we output 0. If n is not equal to 0, we have to do some special things. Now, first thing we're going to do is split up this temps, because we're just getting a big line of temperatures and we're going to work with it as an array. Now, we mentioned arrays previously, but just briefly, an array is like a line of pigeonholes, and what you do is you have a variable in each pigeonhole, and you can actually say, I want to look at pigeonhole number 2, and you can look at the variable inside there. So that's what we're going to do. Now, we need to split it up, and we're going to split up by a space. If we look at the example down here, you can see we have a number, then a space, then a number, then a space, then a number, then a space. So if we tell the program that a space separates our values, then we can use that space to separate our values up and put them in our pigeonholes in our array. So let's do that down here in our else statement. The first thing we need to do is give our array a name, and it's going to be in a variable, so we'll have $. We'll call it our temps. So we know it's our array of temperatures. There we go. And we'll make it become equal to something. We'll make it become equal to our function. And this function is going to take our temps and sort them out into our pigeonholes. So what we'll do, the actual function that we're going to use is called explode. And what a cool name for a function, I think. There we go, explode. There you are. You may or may not have noticed in this series that I'm not actually good at spelling, but never mind, we can get around that. So there is our function. We've got brackets, we know it, at the end of the word, we know it's a function. It's PHP, so we have to have a semicolon at the end of the line. Now that function needs some variables. It needs to know what we're going to be separating it by, and it needs to know what you want separating. So we're going to be separating by a space. So let's denote that string. It's a string a length of 1. It's just one character, and that character is the space bar. So we put quotes in for a string, we put our space bar inside it, and then we put a comma to separate our two different things. So we're telling it that we want to separate by spaces, and then we want to separate our temperature variable up, what's inside it. So there is our string of temps. And that should be it. That should all now be all good and ready to go. We've got an array of temperatures that we've read in from the system line. Well, what do we need to do now? Now we need to figure out which point of the array is actually the the correct one. Which pigeonhole, in other words, has the lowest value, or at least the one closest to 0. So let's start by recursing through the array. Well, not recursing, recursing is the wrong word. We haven't used recursion yet, and to be honest, you don't really want to because, well, you just don't really want to because, well, you just don't really want to. People that know what recursion is will understand what that was. So let's do a loop through this array. Now we can kind of do an easy way of doing this. What we can do, we can use a for each. So let's put a for. Did I type that right? No, I didn't. I missed a letter. We need a CH. There we are. For each. So we're going to say for each variable in this array, we're going to do stuff. So inside we have our condition in brackets, and that's the the round brackets, and then we put curly brackets to say this is our for each zone. Now we have no condition inside our brackets, so we're still getting an error message here. So let's put our condition in, and we're going to say for each array item as we need a new variable. Temp. No. Yeah, temp. We haven't used temp yet. So we've put $temp. So we're going to say for every temperature inside our array of temps, we're going to do something. Now, I want to be able to count our way through the array, because we're going to need to return back. We're going to have to, at the bottom of all this, at the bottom of our for each here, we're going to have to echo back the position of which we got to. So that is what we're going to do. Now, I'm not using indentation, so let's just put some indentation. Can I do that? Yes, I can. That's better. We're missing, I think we're missing a bracket here from the bottom of, oh no, I've put the for each in the wrong place. We need to put the for each within this else here, because we're doing it all here. So let's just bring that out there. There we go, that's better. We're just going to leave a bit of white space lying around. Let's just space that out there. Yeah, there we go. Right, so we've got our for each now. Let's make sure that that's spaced out nicely. Good. So now we've got a loop of which we can do our checks in. Now, whilst we're going through this loop, we need to count what position we're at. So let's get a new variable in there. Let's say, let's call it X for our counter. I tend to use X, Y, Z and for counters. It's probably not the best thing to use because you tend to do coordinates by X, Y, Z. So I tell you what, let's use I instead. So we'll use I and we'll say $, because it's a variable, I is equal to 0. There we are. We're declaring a new variable by giving it a value. In PHP, we don't have to dim a value like you have to in VB. Because we're using the $ symbol in front of every single variable, it automatically knows whether it's a variable. We don't have to tell it in a special line. So we've got our counter, I, and we're going to say, we're going to start it at 0. No, wait, we're going to start it at 1. Because we're going to be working with the first temperature in the array, and then we're going to do stuff with it, and then at the end of that loop we're going to say I is equal to, hang on, that's just $, not I. There we go. I is equal to I, whatever I is, plus 1. Now you might be able to, in PHP, be able to do something like this. $I is equal to $I plus plus. I'm not sure if that's correct syntax. You can do that in some programming languages, and what that means is it will just add, it will increment it, and it will just put it up by 1. But we won't use that because I'm not 100% sure it's PHP compatible. So we've got our loop. We've got a counter in the loop, so we know what point of the loop we're at. That's going to be moderately important. And what we need to do is store the the closest temperature to 0 so far. Okay, so we need to store that. So we'll call it best temp. So this is our best temperature. and we will start by making our best temperature equal to something that's higher than the range of integers that we're going to be getting, I guess. Let's make it equal to 5,500 and let's call it 27, because that is one higher than what we're going to be getting in our input. Now, this is where we're actually going to do our comparison. So we're going to say, let's do if our, let's see, temperature that we're currently looking at is, let's see, we should really do this in two different halves. We should really look at our temperature and see if it's greater or less than 0 or equal to 0. Now we know already, no, we don't know already whether it's equal to 0 or not. We could be past a 0 in this. So let's sort that out first. If the temperature is equal to 0, there we are, is equal to 0, then it's game over, really, to be honest. At this point, we know that we've found the one closest to 0. There's not going to be another one closer to 0. There can be another one that is 0, but to be honest, I'm not sure that the program's going to give us that. So at that point, it's game over. We're going to just outright echo. Let's go here and put our echo in. There we are. We're going to echo out our current line. We're going to say I. We're going to say our current counter. Whatever our counter's at, if we come across a 0, we're going to just give the system that count. And then we're going to say else. And put our brackets in. Right, so if we're not past the temperature, which is 0, we need to find out if it's closer to 0 or not. Okay, let's do this then. Actually, there is a small possibility that this program could output that 0 a couple of times if 0 is passed to it. So really, we want something that can exit our PHP and put ourselves down to the bottom. So what we're going to do, we're going to say, if we have found a temperature which is 0, we're going to echo it out to the line, and then we're just going to exit. Okay, job's done, game over, exit, and that stops the script. So we don't accidentally output another 0 or something like that and cause a problem. That's that bit fixed. Okay, let's put some space in there. Brilliant. Now, so if we don't get past 0 temperatures, and if we don't get past a temperature which is 0, we now need to work out which one is closest. And this is now the real main part. We've dealt with all the fiddly bits. We've put our variables where we want them. We just need to do our main sorting logic. So let's first deal with that kind of, is the number positive or is the number negative? Now in PHP there is a nice little function we can use, and it's called the ABS function. Okay. Now in this ABS function, what it does, it gets you the absolute number. So basically it takes away the whether it's positive or negative and just gives you the positive number. So this way we can actually compare positive and negative numbers together and work out which one's closer. But remember, we must then handle that if two are the same, we need the positive one. So maybe we're going to have to do a little bit of fiddling to get that to work. So we'll say if the absolute number of our temp is less than the number that we're currently storing, so our best temperature, then we need to save our position of our best temp. So so what we need to do is we need to add a new variable so that says, let's call it best temp location. Yeah, let's call it that. And we'll make that equal to, we'll call it 0 to begin with. We'll start with that. So then what, right, so if our temperature, our absolute temperature, is less than the current best temperature, then we just need to put a terminating bracket in. Then we need to actually save that best temperature as the best temperature location. So what we do is best temperature location becomes to the number we are in the loop. Okay. And also best, oh hang on, I think I missed a P from there. Best temp, yes. And then also best temp becomes equal to our temperature. There we go. And that is actually it, apart from we haven't dealt with if one temperature is positive and one temperature is negative. So let's do a couple of simple test cases and we'll see if this works. Now we just need to make sure we're echoing in the right place. So we're echoing out here at the top of this if, that's fine. We've got an explodey bit, we declare some variables and we go through a for each loop. If it's equal to 0, we just echo it out and exit, else we do a load of stuff here to see which temperature is higher than which, and then at the end down here we want to echo our best temperature location. There we go. Let's see if that works. Success! Really? What happened? Simple test case. Apparently we had a success. We had an output of just 1. I don't know what that was. What's the simple test case? No idea. Constraints, console output. Where's the actual test case? It's usually up here, but that's just the goal. We don't get to see it? Oh, that's mean. If we don't get to see the actual input on the console. Okay, let's try it again. Play the test case of the next one. Test case number 2, only negative numbers. See, that simple test case, I have no idea what they are. Maybe it's just one temperature. Let's play the next one. Oh, we got a failure. We found a 1. We expected a dash. Excuse me. Oh, hang on. Does it want the actual temperature? Oh. So it doesn't want the position. Let's see. The output. Oh, it asks us to display the actual temperature, not the position of the temperature. In that case, we've got a very simple piece of stuff to change to our code. We don't want to say. We don't want the best temperature location. We just want the best temperature. So let's go best temperature and just output that instead. Now, this best temperature location, I don't think we actually need it. No, I don't think we do. No, we're not using the temperature location in the array. We just want to save the best one. So let's just do that. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Let's tidy it up. Right, let's try that scenario again. Only negative numbers. Okay, so it found a -1 and it expected -5. Oh dear. Now, could this be because we're not getting the absolute best from our best temperature? I think it might well be that. Let's put that in there. We want to be comparing the absolute version of the temperature we're looking at with the absolute best temperature so far. So yes, I think that is actually possibly the problem. Let's save that off and try again. Success! Okay, that was the problem. So we needed to be comparing the absolute temperature that we're looking at along with our best temperature, the absolute version so far. Let's see if we can choose the right temperature. I don't know what that means. Oh, failure. We found a negative and it expected a 5. Now I think this is where it comes to having the positive more preferred than the negative. So we're going to have to look at that bit now. So this is where we need to be looking at the if a little bit more in terms of sign. So if the our current temperature is closer to 0, is less than our best temperature, we're going to do some stuff, but we need to do another if. We need to test if this if, oh my goodness, too many ifs. There we go. We need to test if one temperature is positive and the other is negative. We're going to see which one's bigger than the other. So let's have a look. So we've already decided that the new temperature is smaller, but the new temperature could be positive and the best temperature so far could be negative. And if that's the case, we need to say if the current temperature is greater than the best temperature, then we want the current temperature, because that one is bound to be positive. Else, we just want to keep our best temperature, I think. If the current temperature is greater than the best temperature, then yes, I think that's it. Else, we do nothing. Because if the current temperature is less than the best temperature, but yet their absolutes are the other way round, then what if the absolutes are equal to each other? Ooh, we haven't handled that. Let's do less than or equal to. There we go. Let's just get rid of that extra line in there. Get rid of that extra line. Okay, let's check these cases again. So a simple test case. Oh, it's failed. Brilliant. We didn't make our corrections right. Well, let's break that out then. Let's bring this if down here, duplicate it out, and we'll say if the temperatures are equal, and we'll deal with that separately. So there we go. So if one temperature is clearly bigger than the other, then we set our best temperature to do that. If our current temperature we're looking at is less than our best temperature in the absolutes, then we just make it equal. We just make the best temperature the new temperature there, like that. Now, if we are equal to each other, then we need to examine which one is greater. So if the temperature is greater than the best temperature, then we put that in. If it's not, if the temperature is less, so if it's negative, then we don't do it. So that should actually now fix that. Let's try again. Ah, there's something wrong. Found nothing. Nothing. Oh dear. Oh, I think I've noticed it here. We're doing a comparison and we need a double equals for a comparison. Because it's a string comparison, sort of. It is a string comparison, so there we go. Let's try it with a double equals. Success, there we are. So it's just the double equals that was bugging out the program. Let's check only negative numbers. That's a success. Now let's choose the right temperature between positive and negatives and see if this new piece of code here works. Success! It chose the positive 5 over the negative 5 because of this if statement. Brilliant. Let's have a look. Choose the right temperature too. Success! Again, it chose 5 again. I don't know whether it had it the other way around in the inputs. It'd be nice to see a list of temperatures. I mean, I know there's a possibility that of 10,000 temperatures being passed to this particular program, but it'd be nice to see the sample. Complex test case. Now, in theory, our program should be able to pass that. So let's have a look. Success! I don't know what the complex test case was, but it worked. And then no temperature. Now this is the bit we did at the very beginning. If the number of temperatures equals 0. Let's see if it works. No! Oh, it didn't work. Nothing happened. Let's check our code. I think I think we didn't put that in there as a comparison, as in n is equal to 0. So let's just try that again. Yes, it was. We need double equals for the comparison there, so it was just a little coding error. Our logic was fine. And there we go. Our program is actually completely done. If we just remove some of these bits of white spaces in here that we did left. I tend to leave white extra space in when I'm doing coding, so I can see the different sections that we're working with a little bit easier. And I thought maybe it'd be better for you guys. Maybe you guys might be able to look at that and actually help you work that out too. But there we go. Let's just go quickly through this whole piece of code and just look at what's actually going on here one last time before we finish off the episode. So at the very beginning of the program here, we're getting into variables. We're reading in two lines. The first line we read in is a number, and that number is defined as the variable $n. That's the number of temperatures, and then we have our string of temperatures, a big long string. First thing we do is check to see if the number is equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, we just echo out 0 because we don't get any temperatures, and that's what it asked us to do. If we get more, or well, we can't have less than 0 temperatures. If it's not 0 number of temperatures, we go into our else statement. In our else statement, we get our temperatures and we explode them into an array using the spaces between the temperatures. We then get a counter, which we set equal to 1 at the beginning, and make a best temperature number so that we can keep a record of our best temperature. We then loop through our array of temperatures. And we say if the temperature is equal to 0, just say that's it, we found a one that's 0, we output where we are in the loop with our counter and just exit our script. If we don't find one that's 0, then we carry on and we do some sorting, and this is where the main guts is. So we say if the absolute temperature that we're looking at is less than our absolute temperature of our best one, so we're getting rid of whether it's positive or negative. If it's less, so if it's closest to 0, then that's our new best temperature, and it saves our temperature as the new best temperature. If they just happen to be equal to each other, so they're either 5 and 5, or -5 and -5, or 5 and -5, because we're getting the absolutes, if they're equal to each other, then it checks to see which one is positive and which one's negative, and then saves it if appropriate. Then all we do is we go down to the bottom of the for each loop, add 1 onto our counter so we know we're going on to the next section of the for each, and at the very bottom here, echo out our best temperature. Well, there we go. We got there in the end, and we actually managed to play all the test cases. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the episode, remember to give it a like, and any thoughts, ideas or questions, pop down in the YouTube comments. I do read them all, and I reply back to as many as I can. If you want to find out more about me and the things that I do, you can head over to masterhellish.net, and you can find out all the things about me, including my schedule and events and the different things I do. Well, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. For now, goodbye.